Jai Hind to everyone. My name is Vikas. I'm assistant professor in Department of Computer Science and Engineering at Akgec Engineering College. The topic that I'm going to discuss today is constructor in Java is there. This is the outline of my presentation. What is constructor in Java? What is the rule for creating the constructor and type of constructors are there? So, constructor is basically is in a block of the code which is similar to the method is there. It is being called whenever the instance of class is being created is there. So, at the time of calling the constructor, memory for that object is being allocated in the memory is there. It's basically a special type of method which is used to initialize the objects are there. How we are going to construct each time we create an object or you can say every time we have to create an instance of an object by using the new keyword that is new. So, at least one constructor is being called at that time is there. If there is no constructor is being defined by the programmer is there, in that case the Java will take other default constructors is there. So, so it calls the default constructor and provide the default values are there, and generally the default value either it will be a 0 or a null is there. So, depending upon the situations. So, in such case your compiler provides a default constructor by default is there. There are two types of constructors are there. Constructor with the no arguments, constructor with the parameterized constructors are there. So, we can say constructor is a type of creations of an object in which the value if it is being defined, okay, otherwise if it is not being defined, then the default value is being taken by the during the your Java compilers are there. So, how we are going to create an constructors are there? Generally, there are two defined rules for the constructor are there. First thing is the constructor name must be same as the class name is there, and the constructor must have no explicit written type is there. And also the constructor should cannot be, or you say it should abstract, static, final or synchronize there. So, as we already know, there are type of constructors are there, two types are there. Default constructors where there is no argument of constructor is there, another is parameterized constructors are there. So, this is an example of the default constructor here. Constructor is called default constructor when it does not have any parameters are there. So, generally let us suppose if you write and let us suppose you have created a class is a XYZ and you have taken the this is example and you have taken the constructor as similar as a class name is there. So, you have defined the here there is no parameters are being defined here, and you just simply say that system dot out dot println so and so. So, in this way the default constructor can be or any constructor can be defined here in this case, and here in this case we are taking the no arguments in the constructor here. So, in this examples this is Java program is there where we call the create a constructor and we call that as a default constructor here. Here we are creating the class bike is there, bike 1 is there. So, after creating a class we have to define the our constructor in the that class is there. So, class 1 so let's suppose class bike is being defined. Now, we have to create a constructor here. Here in this case, in this example, we are taking the default constructor. So, we say bike 1 as we say it should be similar to the your class name is there. So, bike with no arguments and system.outprint bike is being created here in this case. And as the constructor are being defined within the class is there, but they are not defined in the other main classes there. So after defining the constructor, now we call the main class, that is public static void main string arguments are there. We can also write the strings here and there, and arguments are both can be replaceable with are there. So public main class is being defined. Now here the instance of created is being the bike1b. Here b is an object is being created by using the new keyword, that is new bike1 is there. So, then we call that instance has already been created, and that constructors are already being above has been created. So as in this we have to print, as we are not giving parameters, we are going to print the values, that is bike is being created, and the output will be when this instance is being created, then you will call this constructor, and this constructor whatever the things that have been written, it will be printed here when we run that Java programs are there. If this is the default constructor. If we don't define a constructor here, in that case, the compiler will give the default values are there, that is which is already been defined. That say either is null or 0 is there. Let's take a default constructor where we don't define the any kind of constructor here in this case. So what is the purpose of default constructors? The default constructor is to provide the default value, objects like 0, null, etc., depending upon the types what are in that programs has been defined there. So here in this case, in this class, we are not creating any constructor. We are not creating any constructor here. So compiler provides your default constructor. Here the compiler provided a default constructor here. So here this and null values are provided by the default constructor here in this case. So let's take an example. Here in the class student3 is being created. We have defined the int id and the string name is there. So method has to display the value of id and the name of the person is there. So we say void display system.println and the name id and the name is there. Now here we are not creating any constructor here in this case. We just simply say that the display is defined method is there. So public stat in the main we say public static void main string arguments is there. Now we create an objects is there. So student3 s1 is object is equal to new student3 is there. Student3 is the class name, and this is the your constructor has been defined here with respect to. So here in this example there are two objects are being created, and with respect to two objects the constructors are being created are there. Now we have to display the values of the objects. Say let's say s1 dot display, then s2 dot display is there. So it will call the display, and display will print the values here in this case. Now as we haven't created any kind of constructor here in this case, so default value will be 0 with respect to the id is there, and the null with respect to the name here in this case with respect to your s1 here in this case when the display is being called here, as well as the when for the s2 the value will be 0 and the null will be the value for the name here in this case. But in this if you say in the previous examples we have defined the constructor here. You see here we have defined the constructor here in this case, not in the outside the main method here in this case, but without in the next examples we have not defined any kind of constructor here only. So what it do, by default your Java compiler what they do, they create provide the default constructors. So that is constructor, this will be defined and the values are being provided your Java compilers are there. So this is the constructor is being created with respect to without any arguments are there. If we define the constructors, then we can print the values whatever that we want to print whenever the that is being constructor is being called while creating an instance on objects. we can display the output is there. If you don't create any constructors, your Java compiler by default provide the values are there. So, as depending upon this type size. So, already say, so the default constructor used to provide the default value to the objects like 0, null, etc. depending upon the what is the type of the objects are there. The next one is constructor with the parameters are there. So, here the constructor will specify number of parameters, it is called parameterized constructor are there. Parameter constructor used to provide the different values to the distinct objects are there. You can provide the same also, we can provide the same values to the those objects are there depending upon the requirements are there. So, let's take an examples in which we have parameterized constructors are being created. So, here again we have taken the student class which have the 2 parameters, and we have any number of parameters in the constructors is there. We can create either 1 parameter, we can create 2 parameters, we can create 3 parameters depending upon the need is there. So, in this examples, we have creating a class is here, that is student 4, and we have to print the student roll number and the student name is there. So, ID is being defined, that is int ID is being defined, then the string name is there, when name has been defined with respect to student is there. Now, we have to create a parameterized constructors are there. Student 4, here the parameters are being defined here, that int I and the string n is there. So, let's suppose initially we have given the value int ID is I and name is equal to n is there. So, these things that we are going to insert, and on the basis of that those value will be displayed here in this case. So, now we have the create a method that is void display here in this case, and after defining the void methods, now display the system.printout .println, it will print the ID of the student as well as the name of the students are there. This has to be defined outside the main, but within the class here in this case. Now, the main method has been called, the public static void main, string arguments are being defined. Now, we have to create the objects are there, then we have to pass the values are there. So, here what we do, we are creating the 2 instance of an objects, or you can say we are inserting the 2 values with respect to the users, the student ID as well as the student name are there. So, here student as the student 4, the class name is there, then S1 is the for the student 1, we are inserting the value is equal to new is the keyword, and this is the constructor here. So, student 4, here we are initially giving the first values, let's suppose we give the 111 here in this case and the current here in this case. So, for the S1 object, the student ID is 111 and the name is current is there. Now, again we are inserting another student here in this case, a student name, a student ID and name is there. So, for that new object has been created, that is S2 here in this case, and the new student 4, this is equal to the same as the name. So, this is the constructor, and the second value that we have insert 222 and the RN is the name. So, ID is 222 and the RN is there. Now, we have to call these methods to display the values of the objects are. So, we have first we have insert the value, we create an object, we pass the values are there. After passing the value, now we have to display the values are there. So, that we say S1 object, for that objects we have passed the value. Now, we have to display here. So, display will be called. So, here the display will be called. Now, display will display the value. So, it will print the values ID and the name is here. So, S1 display, whenever the S1 display call, it will call the first the value that for that value has been passed for that particular objects are there. So, it will display the 111 and current here. When we say S2 dot display, so it will again go to the display and print this value system.out will be print the second values, second ID and the name of the students are there. So here the value has been given 222 and the RN is there. So it will be printed here. These two values are being printed. So 111 is the ID and the current is the name of the students. Again 222 is the ID for the students and RN is the name of the. So this is the parameterized constructors are there. So generally in the constructors, as we say, recall is that the constructor must be similar to your name is there, class name is there, and they should not return any kind of values are there. Return type should not be there, and there are two types are there, that is constructor without arguments, constructor with the parameters are there. Okay. Apart from that, there are the special types of constructors are there, that is called copy constructors are there. Before going to that, there is another type this parameterized constructor is a little bit similar to your overloading here in this case, where we can have the multiple parameters are can be used. 1 or 2, 3. Here in this case, we have created only two parameters are given for that constructor design. We can also create another constructor here in which we can provide the one values. Let's take examples using the operator using the overloading, which is the concept of the object oriented programming is there. So in Java, the constructor is like a method, but without any return type, as we already know. So you can also overload and like your Java methods are there. Constructor overloading is a technique of the having more than one constructor with a different parameter list. As we already know, 1 parameter, 2 parameters or more, so on. They are arranged in any way as each constructors are there. They can differentiate by the compiler at the time of compilations, the number of parameters in the list and their types are there. So here, this is the examples is there here, which is let's say examples we are creating in a public class point here in this case, which is the int x and int y being defined. Two values are being defined, integer type, and it is a class name is public class point here in this. Now we have created a constructor with no arguments, public point, no arguments, and we pass the value here as a 0 here in this case. Okay. Now constructor with the two integer arguments are public point int x and int y here in this case. Then we pass the two values x and y here in this case. Here the constructor with the one arguments, though so we public point we pass the values int one value here in this case, value x and y values are there. Now we come to the main method here. So we create as we are defining the three types of constructors. One is constructor no arguments, constructor two arguments, constructor with the one arguments are there. So we have creating the three objects are there, that is P1, P2 and P3 here in this case. So point P1 equal to new point, the constructor where we have the no arguments are being defined. Point P2 is equal to new point 3 and 5, because in the second constructors we have passed the two values int x and y. So we have defined the two values of integer type, that is 3 and 5 here, which will pass the value to the x and y. Another constructor object has been created, that is P3, which is equal to new is equal to 7 here, because we have defined the integer only single values are being taken here in this constructor here. So when they are being compiled, the compiler will print those values here. So we say system.println P1 x is equal to plus double quote plus P1 dot x plus y plus P1 dot y is there. So x and y values are being printed. So here in this case, the values for the with no arguments, there are values are being 0, 0 is there. So the value will be x on y will be 0 here in this case. For the second, we have taken the two integer types values are there. So here which will be defined 3 and 5. So x value will be 3 and 5 value will be y value will be 5 here in this case. In the third constructors, we have taken the single integer type parameters, that is integer type value is there. We define as a 7 here. So, for the with respect to x and y, the value will be print. So, here as x and y is this values, we have defined the 7. So, x value is 7 and y value is 7 here in this case. So, this is the example of constructor overloading here. Overloading is basically is the another concept is object oriented concepts where we can have the different parameters can be defined for the same methods are there. Now, come to the copy constructor, which is another special types of constructor in Java is there. A copy of constructor is special constructor that creates a new object as a copy of existing objects of the same class. It takes an objects of the same class as a parameter, initialize the new object with the same values as the parameter objects. Main purpose of the copy constructor is to create a new object that is duplicate of an existing object is there. This is often necessary when we want to work with the copy of object without modifying the originality of the code is there. So, in this examples, we have taken the public class, my class is being taken, private int x, private string is there. Now, we create a constructor public my class int x and string s is there. So, x and y values have been defined. Now, we are copying the constructor here. Again, we have defined the my class, and in my class, we are copying the constructor of the other class is there. That is this class constructors data are being constructors are being copied here in this case. So, my class others are being copied here, and others in this others we will be putting the values. So, others dot x and other dot s is there. So, in this way we copy the here this constructor is being created, and this constructor is being again called as a duplicate in this constructor as a copy whenever the want to print the duplicate values are there. So, this is the copy constructor in Java. So, when to use the copy constructor particularly useful when we need to create a new object with the same state as the existing objects are there, but you do not want to create an object to reference of the original objects are there. This is common when dealing with the mutable objects where the change to the one object will not affect the other objects are there. So, Java does not provide any default copy constructors are there. If you do not define a copy constructor, Java will use the default constructor which only create a shallow copy of the objects are there. If your class contain a mutable objects, you will need to be define the copy constructor that to create a deep copy of the objects are there. So, this is the difference as I already discussed the methods initially is there. We need to differentiate between the Java constructor and Java methods are there. Java methods have to define within the class is there, but they are not defined in the main methods there. They have to define outside the main is there. So, constructor is used to initialize the state of an object, method used to expose the behavior of the objects are there. Constructor must not have any return type, method can have any return types are there. Constructor is invoked implicitly, method is invoked explicitly. So, Java compilers provides a default constructor if you do not have any kind of constructor. Method is not provided by the compiler in any cases are there. Constructor name must have the same as the class name is. A method may or may not be the same as the class name are there. Okay. So, this is the all about the constructor here. Today that we have discussed the what is the constructor is there, how do we are going to types of constructors are there, how we are going to create the constructors are there. We have discussed the constructor with no argument, default constructors are there, as well as the constructor with the parameters are there. We also discussed the overloading constructors are there where we can different parameters can be used. We have discussed the copy constructors are there, which is in which we can have the duplicate values or can be defined there. And we have also as constructor is being defined similar to your methods are there, but with the slight difference are there. So the difference between the constructor and methods in Java is being there. Generally you can either the questions that can be asked, how you are going to create a constructors in university exams, how you are going to create a constructors are there, what are the various examples, what are the various way you can create, and you have to you can or they can ask you what are the constructor and what is the methods, how they're different with each other's, explain with the help of the examples are there. Thank you.